My name is Abigail Tumininu, and I'll be answering 5 questions today. So, the first question I'll be answering is, how exactly did you come about Volunteer Better? What was the inspiration? I started volunteering in my second year as a medical student, and I came across a number of team leads. From my discussion with them and from my experience even in the non-profit organizations, that volunteer mismanagement was an issue that was not really paid attention to, and there were issues with volunteer orientation, volunteer recruitment, volunteer engagement. I realized that volunteers were coming on board, but there was no structure in place. There was no guidance. There was nothing to, properly onboard them such that they are in tune with the mission and the vision of the organization. There was really nothing to just, give them this sort of background or framework. And this for me, these were things that I felt like were very important at that point in time. Initially I thought it was just peculiar to some organizations. However, I realized that it was something that was seen repeatedly, so it was actually across a lot of organizations, even the ones that I hadn't even worked with. From my discussion with some of the team leads that I met at international forums, I was able to realize that this was a recurring issue. And the funny thing is that this was not an area that was paid attention to. There are a lot of people that were doing things in climate change, education, recycling, health, and while all of these things were great, I just felt like the ability of an organization to meet its mission and its vision largely depends on the efficiency of these volunteers, on the productiveness of these volunteers or productivity of these volunteers. And it wasn't an area that was really talked about. So I was like, why not? Let's talk about volunteer management. So the second question is, what exactly does Volunteer Better do? What kind of programs are run at Volunteer Better? So Volunteer Better transitioned from just an idea, an idea to solve problems on volunteer mismanagement, into an entire organization, an entire initiative that has a vision and a mission. So the vision of Volunteer Better is to see a world where non-profits thrive because of better volunteers. And our mission is to improve volunteer productivity by the joint effort or collective effort of executives, team leads, and other non-profit organizations, because we know that in order for volunteers to be productive, it's something that requires the efforts of the organizations that they work in, the team leads that manage these volunteers, the volunteer coordinators, and the volunteers themselves that are actually doing this work. So that's our mission statement, and we do this using a multi-pronged approach. These 8 programs are being released in phases or stages, such that we don't have too many things happening at the same time. So the first program we have is a Volunteer Better Conference, which is the VBOC, and Volunteer Better Conference basically helps to connect volunteers and connect volunteers globally and discussing issues pertaining to volunteer and volunteerism. We have the Volunteer Better Executive Conference. Now this is VBVEC, and this connects volunteers with executives. So we have like a conference where we have different team leads or executives that are across different organizations coming together with volunteers in different organizations, so that we discuss things that relate to both parties. And I mean things like volunteer management, things like volunteer role, things like volunteer onboarding, things like volunteer engagement, such that there is we have 2 perspectives to the issue. And I think this is a very, very important component of Volunteer Better. The third program we have is the Volunteer Better Volunteer Organization Match. Now this is where this is an outsourced method of recruiting volunteers. So how it works is organizations contact us at Volunteer Better to help them to recruit volunteers. So we take charge of the recruitment, we take charge of the interviews, we take charge of the onboarding, and the orientation, such that we help them, we take the burden or we take the stress off them in going through all of the process of volunteer recruitment, orientation, and all of that, and then we help them with this, and we help them create a volunteer match, so matching volunteers to organization. Another component of our program is the volunteer management workshop, which is the VMW. Now, the volunteer management workshop basically helps to educate executives on volunteer management, so how to properly, basically everything that has to do with volunteer management, from the start to finish. So that's what a volunteer management workshop does. It's for executives and team leads, and we believe that at the end of the day, if we can target this, if we can do this right, then we're going to be having different volunteers in different organizations doing the actual work, and the organizations will be able to meet their targets, and we believe that they will make more impact. We believe that they become more productive. So another component is a volunteer better capacity workshop, and this is a workshop training for volunteers. Basically things like how to volunteer, how to maximize your volunteer productivity, how to before you volunteer, things you should know before volunteering, and it's targeted at volunteers basically. So we give out seminars, we give out materials, we give out ebooks, we give talks, we give presentations to volunteers across different organizations based on the requests we have for the organization. So we also have the Volunteer Better Opportunity Box. That's like a platform where we put volunteer better opportunities that we outsource to people based on their volunteering needs. So the third question is talking about your experience in the social sector. What experiences have you had, and how have they been essential to where you are right now within the non-profit space? So this question is a very interesting one because I'm a medical doctor, and I understand that for some people, being a medical doctor is kind of seen as a career path that doesn't allow you or give room for other things. But because I'm really particular about what we do at Volunteer Better, this is something that I have observed over the years. It's something that I decided to do, and I think it's very important in the social sector. So talking about my experiences, I would say that it all started in my 300 level as a medical student, where I was asked to come on board, or I was asked to come on board to volunteer with a particular organization, Pivot Africa Youth Empowerment Organization. And initially, the 300 level medical curriculum is quite technical because you're doing a lot more courses. At that point in time, I didn't really know if I had, or if I wasn't so sure of how I was going to combine the two of them together. But then when I went to the meeting and I heard the people talk about what we were supposed to do, what it was about, immediately I just resonated with them, and I was determined to ensure that I managed my time properly. So at the end of the meeting, I knew that I wanted to be a part of this. What we were doing, Pivot stands for Purpose, Inspiration, Value, Orientation, and Transformation. So what we were doing at the time was to ensure that we equip adolescents, because we believe that that is the age of psychological plasticity, meaning that is the age where you could actually make changes and correct behavioral patterns and all of that. So this was something that I was really particular about. So what I did was, after the meeting, I sat down, planned my time. I knew what I had to do at a particular point in time. So it was something that I had to just get used to, and it was a bit challenging at first, but then with the right support, I was able to balance it out properly. So the experience initially, I started as a content creator in the organization, and I became, because of my performance, I became the administrative manager at I think shortly about a year after I got into the organization. And when I became the administrative manager, I was like, oh my God, what's this? Because I was placed in charge of about 30 executives and about 10 volunteers or 15 volunteers. All I knew was that there were a lot of people in the organization at that point in time, and I was supposed to be the administrative manager, coordinate the executives, ensure that meetings are and hold meetings for executives, ensure that our programs were properly planned and executed. I was to ensure that each team lead was doing the right thing, that the volunteers under the team leads were working well, and it was a bit challenging because prior to this, I had leadership experience, and I used to think that leadership was really about delegating tasks to people and just allowing people to tell people what to do. But as a manager, I realized that management involves getting things done through people, and management is beyond telling somebody, oh, this is what you should do, this is what I think you should do. Management is really about, first of all, analyzing the situation at hand, ensuring that you have enough resources available for whatever task you've assigned to somebody, following up on the task, ensuring that the person is well suited for the task, ensuring that you're providing a continuous feedback and evaluation from the person, ensuring that you have a relationship with the person so that you can communicate challenges and all of that. So you also even have to provide an avenue for that, and at the end of the day, assessing the tasks assigned. So in order to be a good manager, you need to have people skills, you need to have interpersonal skills, you need to have emotional intelligence, you need to be accessible as a person, you need to be interconnected, you need to trust, you need to have tolerance. It really involves so many things, and the experience was a very very useful experience for me, because there I learned so many things about myself. I realized my strong point, my strengths. I realized that I was somebody who was able to listen to people, talk to people about challenges, and I realized that I was able to actually manage people. People used to tell me that you're a very good leader, you work well with people, I like how you manage people, I like how you handle people, I like how you resolve situations diplomatically. And in my mind, I used to be like, really? And I didn't even know that all of these skills were being imbibed in me until I had spent about 3 years in the organization, and then I had to transition to another program. I was volunteering for the Quarantine Fellowship Initiative, and I was supposed to develop a 6-week curriculum for 30 secondary school students, all girls. And initially, when I got the volunteering role, I wasn't sure, because that was my first introduction into program design, so to speak. I had done some program designs for Pivot Africa, but nothing of this nature and doing it independently. So I developed a 6-week curriculum for these girls at the Quarantine Fellowship Initiative, and I taught them for 6 weeks of content creation. And there was a very, very beautiful experience that earned me a commendation from the United States Consulate, and it was something that I knew was the beginning of my work in the development sector. So when the opportunity came for me to participate in the Young African Leadership Initiative, I applied and I was selected, and it was a very interesting experience, because then I learned about leadership, I learned about management, I learned about design thinking, I learned about problem solving, I learned about 21st century leadership skills, I learned about emotional intelligence, I learned about critical thinking. And the good thing about what Yali did for us was that Yali gave us case-based scenarios, and the most interesting thing about Yali is that you get to do a project at the end of your session. So it's not just about teaching you this is what you should do, this is what you do. They expect that you apply everything that you've learned to a particular project. So I went through the Yali program. I also was selected for the Commonwealth 100 online leadership program, and this was where I learned about interconnectivity. As a young person, you need to learn how to work with somebody in another country. So I'm a Nigerian, I need to understand the culture of somebody who is a Russian, or somebody who's in China, learning how to understand their cultures, understand their backgrounds, understand their ways of thinking, so that you can put all of that together when you're working with them. So this was what really interconnectivity taught us about in the Common 100 online leadership program. I learned about trustworthiness, I learned about tolerance, I learned about being accessible, and I think for me that's what has really helped me in my work and development sector, where even as a leader, even as the head of an organization, you need to be accessible. You need to ensure that people can walk up to you and talk to you about issues pertaining to your organization. And I believe that when people feel comfortable enough to be able to talk to you, they can give you more ideas. They could share ideas with you without hesitation. They could do more for your organization. So that program was very important, instrumental. I also started out Volunteer Better, and Volunteer Better, being the founder of Volunteer Better, doubling as a team lead, has really opened my eyes to a lot of things. I learned to be vulnerable with my team members. I learned to share my good and bad experiences with them, and I think for me that really made me closer to my team members, because I think they realized that when you share both good and bad things, they realize that you're human. So even if you are the boss, even if you're the team lead, you're human, meaning that you can actually make mistakes. So sometimes I come out to them and say, guys, I don't know what to do. What do you guys think? And some people might find it that, some people might think that even as a team lead, you need to be all knowing and delegate properly. I learned how to and this is very important, I learned how to share and spread opportunities. So initially, when I started Volunteer Better, I got so many opportunities to expand in terms of maybe fellowship programs or speaking events, all of that. So initially, there was something that I was doing. I was going for most of them, but then I realized that there was a time that a time would come, and that time eventually came, where my team members had gotten strong enough. They had learned so much from me. We had learned a lot together, and that they were good enough to actually take some solo presentations. So I said that fine, opportunities are going to come my way, but then I need to ensure that my team members also participate from this opportunity. So I had to spread it out such that it wasn't just me doing everything, because I feel like this gives them opportunity for growth, for advancement. I feel like this gives them opportunity to recognize their own strengths, and it also helps them in their own career trajectories, because it really helps them to learn. So this was something that I really learned as a team leader, Volunteer Better. I attended the social sector boot camp during my undergraduate training, and in fact this was really part of one of the most important lessons I learned working with people in Africa. And the boot camp really talked about so many things in the social sector, but most importantly, what the boot camp made me realize is the fact that not everything has to be, not every idea you have has to translate to an NGO. You can actually be an initiative. So I also recently finished the Peace First Lead the Work program, and I learned about social entrepreneurship. I learned about scaling your projects, learned about developing partnerships, I learned about fundraising. And for me, these are skills that are needed for a young founder like myself. And I think that with all of these experiences, I hope I have not talked too much, but all of these experiences, I think that I can say with confidence that I've been able to, build my competency in this sector, which is what is really helping me to run Volunteer Better as an organization. Do I combine medicine with social entrepreneurship, seeing as the two of them are polar opposites? So what I would say is that from I think when I was in secondary school, I noticed that I was passionate about management. Management in the sense that getting things done through people, working in teams, building teams, basically anything that involves working in teams and helping those teams to achieve a goal. So something I was really passionate about, and I didn't really understand what it meant until I started working in non-profit sector. Then I happened to be pushed into leadership roles and management roles. So why am I talking about management? I'm talking about management because management transcends all careers. I mean, you have management in medicine, healthcare management, you have management in the non-profit sector. So for me, it was about finding a balance. So instead of me looking at it as, oh, you're a doctor and then you're doing social entrepreneurship, and then it's two polar opposites, I find the common ground. So each time I learn about something in health relating to management, I apply that in my work in the non-profit sector and vice versa. I'm currently doing the leadership and management course from University of Washington, and we're learning about leadership and management in the health sector. And everything that I learn every day from that course, I apply it to my work in the non-profit sector. So for me, I think it's the common ground that's important, which is management. I'm very particular about health management, health management, human resources and health, and ensuring that we have good health leadership and we have effective management, such that our resources in health, such that our health finance system, such that our medical equipment, our deliverables, everything that make up the health system work together, work in unison, because health leadership and management is extremely important. A health sector that doesn't have proper leadership, proper governance, proper guidance would fail. So this is something that I'm really passionate about as a medical doctor. So it plays out in my everyday activities. It plays out in my work as a doctor. So this is also what I do in the non-profit sector. So it's really about management, really volunteer management, healthcare management. And this is really where my strength lies in. So the last question, the final question, why did you wait till 2020 to start your own initiative, seeing as you already had experience and skills? Okay, so when this question came up, I had to think about it for a minute, 2 minutes, sorry. And I was like, okay, I've actually never thought that to come up as a question. And I will just start with this. I didn't know that I was going to start Volunteer Better. What I knew was that I had an idea in my head. I had seen an issue, a recurrent issue of volunteer mismanagement. I had seen the way volunteers will come on board and leave the organization, and then you have a group chat that has 50 people and nobody is active. I knew that there was an issue. I knew that I wanted to do something, but I didn't know that I wanted to start Volunteer Better. And why is that? Because I told myself in 2019, when somebody actually asked me the question, 2018, and the person was like, why are you supporting somebody else's organization? Why not do your own thing? Why not, why do you have to be second? Why not be number one? And I thought about it, and initially I was like, oh, okay. But then I realized that, first of all, as a young change maker that has an idea, you do not have to start an organization. If you have an idea, you could execute it as a project. Not every project has to lead to the start of an NGO. It is not compulsory. There are some ideas that start off as projects and continue as projects, and that's fine. There's some that just start off incorporated into some CSR projects, corporate social responsibility. There's some that get incorporated into different areas. So it doesn't mean that the fact that you have an idea means that you must start a non-profit. So that's one thing that I understood at that point in time. That was one. Two, I'm very cautious, personally and professionally, and it's something that I would not get into something without properly evaluating the pros, the cons, how I'm going to go about it, what resources are available to me, and all of those things. So before starting my initiative, I had to be sure that I had resources, I had the knowledge, I had the skills that I was going to require to run an initiative, because it's not easy to run an organization. It's not easy. You have to put in so many things in place. You have to ensure that you have so many things. As a leader of the organization, you have to be forward thinking. You have to know about, you have to have an idea of every aspect that involves running an organization, including finance, including budget, including accounting, including building partnerships. It's not just about, oh, we want to reach out to 10,000 girls and then you just go. No, you have to really understand what it takes to run an organization. So what was I doing between 2014 to 2019 or 2020? That's 6 years. I was building, I was learning, I was growing, I was attending workshops, I was attending boot camps, I was learning from my present role in my organizations. I was building relationships, I was developing partnerships with people. I was intentional about my growth because I knew that I had an idea, but I just didn't know that I was going to execute it. But I just kept on doing it anyway. I kept on learning as much as possible. So I would say that for me, that was really the reason why it was till 2020 before I started my own, because it's not, and trust me, you don't have to start your initiative. You don't always have to be the executor. You could actually be a supporter to somebody. It doesn't affect anything. It depends on what you want as a person. So for me, this wasn't something that was, it wasn't like I didn't know what I was doing. It wasn't like I was wasting my time. It was just because I understood the times and seasons, so to speak. I understood the period, and had the idea for my yearly projects. I was very scared because I knew that as a young change leader in Africa, let's be very honest, it's difficult for you to have an idea and figure out how you're going to execute it, taking it from idea stage to prototype. It's not easy because you have to develop the content, you have to plan, you have to create a logical framework, you have to build a team, you have to create method for evaluation, you have to develop methods for measuring impact, you have to think of fundraising, you have to think of building partnerships, and so many of all of those things. And these were things that I didn't even know in depth. But when my friend Kayode told me about Peace First International, and wow, whenever I think about it, it makes me really excited because Peace First International is an organization that helps young people 25 and under take their idea from idea stage to prototype. So they help you learn how to move in those particular stages, and not just that, but Peace First will provide you with a mentor, so to speak, that will go through your work, provide you feedback, and then they would also give you an opportunity of winning a $250 grant. And if you work in the non-profit sector, you understand that getting a grant as a young leader with minimal experience, with that is not an organization, is very difficult. A lot of opportunities that you see, they'll tell you must be in existence for more than 2 years, must have done projects so and so, must have you must have this impact, you must be registered as a non-profit in your country, and you're just a young leader trying to do something good in your community. You have an idea, that's all you have. You don't have a team, you don't really know what to do, you don't even know what what you call problem definition means, you don't know what it means to apply compassion, you don't know collaboration, you don't know all of those things. You just want to execute something, and then Peace First does that for you. So it's really, when I heard about the organization, I went to check on it. When I really understood what they were doing, when I found out, it took up 80% of my fears, and the remaining 20% was just because I was afraid to start something new. And for me, Peace First has really been important to me. Following my first project execution of Volunteer Better, I was also selected for the Peace First Lead the Work program, and this was like a continuation, not really a continuation, but like more like building up on what I had learned. And it was for 34 applicants from Africa. I happened to be one of the selected ones, and there I learned about scaling your organization. In fact, I learned about deciding whether or not my organization was supposed to be an organization or just an initiative. So I learned about fundraising, I learned about developing partnerships, I learned about basically everything I would need to scale up. So I would say that with all of these things in place, I feel more confident about what I do with Volunteer Better and what Volunteer Better stands to achieve. So I think that really answers the question. I'm not perfect, I'm learning. I know that I have developed competency over the years in this particular areas. I know that program design, program development, monitoring and evaluation, I know that It's not what I thought it was initially when I first started in my second year university. I've learned so much over the years, and I'm really, really proud of where I am today. Most importantly, I'm really proud of Volunteer Better, what we do at Volunteer Better. I'm really proud of my team members. I'm proud of our volunteers. And we have our conference coming up on the 19th of June. It's a conference on German-Tier syndrome, and it's a conference that I know that is going to be amazing, because if you're a volunteer, you're an African volunteer, or a volunteer who has a volunteering role in an African NGO currently, and you want to know more about how to make proper volunteering choices in terms of, do I volunteer for this organization or this organization, or why should I volunteer in the first place? I have many interests, why should I pick one? So it's a conference that I think that all volunteers in Africa should attend. Although we have limited spaces because we're trying to ensure that the program is as interactive as possible, but once the link comes out to apply, I suggest that you click apply and fill the form appropriately. It's a virtual conference, so don't worry about getting to the venue. So apart from that, personally, I think that it's just a conference that every volunteer should be a part of. Thank you very much for listening and for watching and for staying till the end of this short but long segment. Enjoy the rest of your day. My name is Abigail Tumininu, and I am a medical doctor and the founder of Volunteer Better.
Love, 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 I wanna be strong, strong.